about the mind. Meditation is about going beyond the mind. It's living in a space called as the heart space. I call it the home state. To explain what I mean, I'm going to give an analogy, a graphic example, a true story from Mumbai. How many of you have been to Mumbai? Oh, none of you have been. Mumbai is, the population density, just to give you a context, the population density of Mumbai is around 17 to 18,000 people living in 1 mile. That's huge, right? I remember the first time I went to Perth, Western Australia. I was sitting in a park and I was feeling, wow, it's so peaceful. Why am I feeling so peaceful? So I picked out my phone, I went on the Google and I checked the population density in Perth. And I was shocked to find the population density is
1,000.
not 1,000, 1.
One.
I was like, what? 1. So from 17,000 I come to, so then I realized why I'm feeling so good. So it's crazy. Too many people, And in the South Mumbai, the heart of Mumbai, we have a monastery. So I'll give you a context. So one of my friends was staying in a place and I had to go to his house because it was raining heavily. And it's a slum area, congested. And the water comes up till neck in a low-lying area. And you know what happens when it floods? And I don't want to disturb your senses, but this is what happens. This is the reality. The water from the washrooms, it all comes out. All the water from the toilets, commodes, it's all mixes. And it's like, and I was in neck deep water and I knew what this water is all about. And I can't describe the experience, the yuck feeling, But I had to help him out because he had some important documents and then I helped him out and then I had to go to my own house. All traffic was, there was no buses and no trains. So I had to literally walk for a few kilometers and I reached home with that yuck feeling. Knock on the door and my mom opens the door and I rushed to the bathroom and I stood under the shower for I don't know how long. And I used all the soap to wash myself. And then I was sitting in the balcony of my house in an apartment building, 6th floor, facing the ocean, fresh breeze, and my mom got me hot pakoras. I don't know if you know what is a pakoda. It's an Indian savory, crispy, fried. Oh, it's very tasty and hot tea. And I was feeling I'm at home. I'm giving you a context of a home state. Just like in the outside world, we need a home state. We need a home, right? When we are stressed, when we are, when you get that yuck feeling and when you want some, basically home state is where you experience 3 things. A sense of belonging. When you feel safe, you know what I mean? You feel, I'm safe here. And peace. If you experience these 3 or the combination of these 3, that is a home state. So the outside world, you need a home state. So now I'm going to take you to your inner world. In your inner world also you need a home state. So there are 2 realities in this world. One is the external world and there's another world inside. And do you know the rules of the inside world? Has anybody taught you? It's like, how many of you know Harry Potter? You don't know Harry Potter. You know? Anybody else? Everybody knows Harry Potter? Yeah. I'm living in a monastery and we don't know anything what's happening in the outside world. But a few years ago, I got curious. What is Harry Potter? Everybody's talking about it. So I asked a friend of mine to get me books from his library. And then I read 2 of Harry Potter novels. And I was amazed. I was amazed because because it was resonating with what I always believed in. I always believed that there are 2 worlds, 2 realities. And J.K. Rowling, to her amazing credit, she captured the imagination of the world by presenting the Muggles world and the wizard world. I call it different, but then I was like, everything made sense to me. Of course, I knew it's a fiction, But there are two worlds we all live in, the inside world and the outside world. And I was amazed because, I actually went to King Station this time to see that platform 3 by 4, yeah, platform 3/4, yeah. So then and then you enter that station and you enter that pillar, right? And then you enter the world of the wizards. And they have their own laws, they have their own school. What is that? Hogwarts, School of Magic. And yeah, Professor Dumbledore, and I was amazed. They have their own Olympics. They have their own police force. They have their own laws. So, my dear friends, you may not know this, but Harry Potter is a reality in our inner world, in the sense we have different laws operating inside. There is an ego, mind, intelligence, dynamics. I'm not going to discuss all of that today. Today is only about meditation, but I wanted to give you a context. Ego is like the unseen mafia boss, the Don. He is not seen, the false ego is not seen, but the mind and intelligence are his bodyguards. And nobody teaches us these things when we are kids. And there are laws. In the outside world, there are laws, Like, I don't know if you've been taught. When you're kids, we are taught. We are taught social mannerisms by our parents. Please, say please, thank you. And in India we are taught, don't dig your nose with your finger. And in India we are taught something very funny. Westerners just can't understand this. We see anyone the age of our parents, we call them uncle and auntie. Namaste, namaste is our way of greeting. And we say namaste uncle. A Westerner, is you uncle? No, but that's the etiquette in India. We call everyone as uncle and aunt. So we are taught mannerisms and we are taught customs, we are taught how to behave in the external world, how to be gracious, how to live with dignity. Wow. But none of us are taught, very few of us are taught how to think, how to become aware of what the mind is saying. The mind has two functions, accept and reject. And intelligence starts planning. And how both of them are the bodyguards of the ego. All these things that we are never taught. But just like the Hogwarts School of Magic, just like the wizards have their laws, the inside world has its amazing, amazing laws, which is beyond the scope of discussion for today. But nevertheless, you need to know that there's something happening inside, right? And in today's context, the art of meditation, I want to tell you that in the inside world, we live in 3 houses. Right now, you are sitting in this what? This is a meditation room? Okay. Maybe, okay, you meditate in a meditation. So you may be like, okay, I'm in Ohio State University, I'm in a meditation room externally. But in your inner world, you are living in one of the 3 houses. You don't have to tell me, ask yourself which of these 3 houses you are living in. And then accordingly, you can move, you can change the gears and enter the house where you find 3 things, remember? Peace, sense of belonging, and safe. So let us discuss these 3 houses in the inside world. Once you know this, trust me, meditation is a byproduct. Forget meditation. You will know how to navigate yourself through all the challenges that are going to come to you in your life. Because you can immediately ask yourself, where am I living right now? Oh, wait. Externally you may be talking, externally you may be solving problems, but you can immediately go inside. Okay, wait, I'm living in house number 1, 2 or 3. No, I'm in 2, let me go to 3. No? So what are these 3 houses? Okay. First house is the house of pleasure, or the house of sense gratification, gratifying your senses. That's one house where we always live. Not always, most of the time. Externally, you may be in the class, listening to your professor making a presentation, and your mind may be feasting on a burger or a pizza. I'll give an example. I was in the monastery. Now I've been a monk for 24 years now, and we have a practice in the morning. Some of you might find it very strange. 5:30 we sit in a circle, a semicircle, and we chant like this, Hare Krishna, quietly for 2 hours. And it's like this, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. We chant in our beats, softly. And the whole temple hall is reverberating with soft chanting. And I was meditating, and something happened to me. I became very hungry. Yes, because I'll tell you what is the problem was, I would get up at 7:30 in the morning at home. And I don't know if it happens to you, an hour after you wake up, you feel hungry. You feel? Yeah. So around 9 o'clock, I would have breakfast at home. But when I joined the monastery, I would get up at 3 in the morning. And 4 o'clock, 4:30, I would be hungry. But that's when our prayers would begin. And our breakfast was at 9 in the morning. So you can imagine the hunger pangs. So around 5 o'clock, I would be like really hungry, desperate for food. And we were like, okay, now we're all going to sit in meditation. And we have this monk sitting next to you. And if somebody dozes off, somebody gets distracted, the other monk would hit him. That's the monastery practice. So we are like, and I'm desperate for food. And I'm a young man. I was 25, now I'm 50. So I was a 25-year-old young boy with an appetite of I could eat anything. So then out of my desperation, I asked my fellow monk colleague who was sitting next to me, he was the kitchen in charge. He would cook everyday breakfast for the monks. And out of my desperation, I asked him, what's for breakfast today? And he got really upset because this is the meditation time and you're asking me about breakfast. So he didn't show his disgust. He just told me, there's samosas and jalebis. Now samosas are the most popular Indian snack. It's deep fried and it's amazing. And jalebis are the most popular Indian sweet. It's crispy, hot. I mean, any Indian would love jalebis and samosas. And I was like, what? Serious? And he said, yeah. He was lying, of course. He just wanted to make a statement that this is not what you're supposed to talk about in the morning. But I was 9. I really thought there's samosas and jalebis. And I began to celebrate in my mind. I started chanting and smiling, thinking, and the whole 2 hours of meditation was like samosas and jalebis. So which house was I living in? Externally, where was I?
Meditating.
Temple. I was in a sacred temple, right? So I'm in a sacred temple setting. But in the inner world, I'm living in the house of sense gratification or the pleasure. And then after 2 hours, when I open my eyes, there's a conch shell that blows. Everyone wakes up. And then there's a greeting of the deities, and there's prayers and dancing. And I was smiling because I had samosas and jalebis. So one of the congregation members, somebody like you, who comes to the monastery in the morning to chant with us, he comes up to me and says, amazing, amazing. I said, what happened? I was looking at you the entire time. You were meditating so nice. But you're such an inspiration for me. You were doing such good meditation and he was glorifying me. And I was like, really? It was very humbling for me because, sometimes it's misleading, right? What happens in the inside world, nobody knows. So that's when I realized, wow, there's an inside world and I'm living in my own world of pleasure. So many of us live in the pleasure world a lot of time. That's one place where we stay. And there's another house, second house. There are 3 houses, remember. The second house is the house of problem solving. Problem solving or struggle. That's the house of struggle. If you're constantly resisting what's coming to you and always struggling, that is the house of struggle or problem solving. It could be purchasing groceries, vegetables for tomorrow. You're sitting here, but you're thinking, okay, I have to call up this friend of mine. I have to get my notes. I have to get my assignments completed. All this is struggle or problem solving. Oh, why did she speak to me like this? I have to get back to her. What does she think of himself? This is all struggle. It's resistance. You're resisting. Something's coming your way, but your sympathetic nervous system is activated. There's a catabolic effect on the body. You're struggling. But externally you are. So it's a wide range of things that can happen in your struggle world. It could be the problem solving space means you are planning to send a rocket to space or you are planning to buy vegetables and anything in between. It all comes in the space of problem solving. So how often in the day, wherever you are, you may be playing. Sometimes when you are playing a sport, you may not be present, you may be thinking of something else. If you're in the struggle space or the pleasure space, you can't play your sport well. Most of us live in these two spaces all the time. And when we are living a lot of time in the struggle space, in the inside world, we slip to pleasure. Because we need some pleasure always. We need some taste, mellow, rasa. So we slip. And then when we are exhausted because the pleasure in the inside world manifests as a struggle outside to seek that pleasure object. Like, once we were in a monastery, again, an example from, because, these are all inside stories, nobody will tell you. You would never know. So we have a community of 5,000 members who come to the monastery once in a while. And we have 100 monks, 150 monks living in the monastery. And we have an annual drama festival where in an auditorium, professionally conducted dramas are held. And these dramas are very popular. And one of the rules during those days was even the monks would perform one drama. So we had to practice a lot. And one of our monks was a very reticent, very unassuming guy. But we forced him to act in the drama. And he said, no, I'm a monk, I have joined to do meditation, I can't go. No, you have to. We forced him. We bullied him, and then he agreed. And we had only one dialogue in the drama. He has to come on the stage, and he has to say, he's a soldier with a sword, with a spear in his hand. And he walks in and says, "Who is Yamuna? The king has sent a palanquin for you. Where are you?" That's it. And then he walks up. But poor fellow, he was so nervous. He practiced for a month every day, 2 hours. He couldn't get it right. But somehow he did it well. And then the last day, the night before the drama festival, he practiced for 2 hours. And we all were pepping him up. Yes, you can do it. He was ready. And the next, again, that drama is in the evening, right? But morning we can't miss our monastery schedules. You have to be there. So 5 o'clock is there, chanting, praying, and then 5:30 to 7:30 is the collective silent meditation session where he's sitting. Om Hare Krishna. We are chanting. The stillness of the ashram, the monastery it's surreal actually. People feel very peaceful. But poor guy, he was in the mind, rehearsing and practicing the drama. Externally was like this. But inside. And guess what happened? Around 6:15, 6:30, when everything is silent, everybody is absorbed in meditation. Suddenly, we hear a booming voice. Who is Yamuna? The king has sent He just said it out loud. What was going on inside for so long just came up. Who is Yamuna? The king has sent and then he realized, and everybody, what happened? And then some of us knew he had a dialogue and we were making him practice. And he was so embarrassing, he gave out a sheepish smile and then we all laughed. And then of course we forgot about it. But this friend of mine was externally in the monastery, but in his inner world, where was he living? In the house of problem solving, struggle. So we all live in this world a lot of time, constantly. And this struggle, this resistance, this problem solving, this can take a heavy toll on our mental health. It takes a heavy toll. So these two, pleasure and problem solving, or also known as sense gratification and struggle. This is unsustainable. So we need a third house, and that is the house of surrender, or shelter, or peace, where it's not about pleasure. You're not solving problems. You are vulnerable to the universe. You are allowing yourself to be influenced by the universe, by forces beyond yourself. Just like a baby is in the arms of the mother. You know how the child is blissful? We are like Krishna, God, universe, Allah. You can name your Lord, and you are like, accept me, my dear Lord, I'm yours. Like for example, right now you may not realize you are right now in the shelter zone. Why? Because you had no idea what I'm going to speak, but you kind of surrendered, in one sense. You came, you're willing to, externally you have entered the surrender space. Now if you're just present, you would enter that zone where you are not resisting or allowing yourself to be influenced by some sound, some higher wisdom. That's a sign of being open-minded and allowing the universe to orchestrate your life. And that's where you will find peace. And if we can spend every day five minutes to begin with, then maybe I spend every day 2 hours in the not problem-solving space, the shelter space or the peace space. I have journaling and I do breathing. I also do prayers. I hear wisdom classes from my seniors and senior monks where I don't resist it. I just allow the sound vibration to influence me. And I also do the Sankirtan, the chanting of Hare Krishna. So this 2 hours of meditation is my sacred space, my home state. You know, once we were driving from North Mumbai to my place where I was staying in the traffic jam. It was after the COVID. And the traffic jam was really intense. And Mumbai heat it can be killing. So 5 hours I was stuck in the traffic. I was sweating, the air condition had got spoiled. And, you know, honking. In America, I see nobody honks. It's considered bad manners, right? But in India, at the drop of a hat, no, everybody's hand goes into honking. Pa, pa, pa. I did so much practice to come to peace with the honking sound. And then I come here and nobody's honking. So, in India, everybody is always on their horns. So I was hearing all of that, and the traffic and the sweat. And when I reached home, I was shelter, relief, peace. Similarly, we are stuck in traffic jams, you know, relationships. We are stuck. We are stuck in issues, unresolvable conflicts. And the more we try to solve them, you'll observe that the solution often creates a bigger problem than the original problem. It happens all the time in our lives. That's the nature of this world. It gets more and more entangling and more complicated. But we have to do our best to solve those problems. What we are proposing as monks is, as you are struggling in this world, why not spend some time every day, a designated 1 hour, where you are at peace with yourself, where you are at a home state, where you are, it's like coming home. That's our proposal. And you know what you will observe? You'll observe. I'll tell you one of my one personally. One incident that happened with me, which has convinced me to go out to the world and share this. This was 3 years ago. My mom was very sick, and I've been in the monastery for many years. And I felt a sense of obligation, duty, love, attachment to my mom, and I knew that she needs me now. So I packed my bags and I said, till my mom gets all right, I want to stay with her. So I left the monastery. For 8 months I lived with my mom, and she had some mental health issues. And she was struggling with schizoaffective disorder. It's a very intense situation. And I had to take care of her. And I had been in the monastery for 20 years. I had forgotten how to manage the house. I was out of touch. And I was really struggling with the hospital, and the medicines, the electricity bills, and all of that. You know, managing a house after 20 years is not easy, and with no companion. You know, we are monks, we don't have a companion. So I was doing it all alone, struggling. After 8, but very important, every day during this period, 2 hours was designated for my home stay. Whatever happened, I was chanting, I was hearing, I was doing my journaling. Every day 2 hours in my home state. And you know what happened? One day, there was a huge cyclone. The coconut trees, I'm from South India, the coconuts started swinging and the coconuts fell. And at one point of time, the electricity went off. And I realized, and it became dark, and then my mom she can't just get off and run. And I knew that maybe we're going to die now, because there's really nothing we could do. We were really helpless at one point of time. And I just held her hand, and I sat with her, and huge sounds, you know, things falling. I saw a huge long snake fall on the terrace of our house from somewhere. And the noise it made. and I had a mosquito net, inside which I would sleep. That mosquito net was just thrown away. I was like, wow. So then I held my mom's hand, and I just paused, and I breathed like this, inhale to the count of 4 and exhale to the count of 4, and I hold it for 2 seconds. It's like this. Inhale to the count of 4, hold it for 2 counts, two breaths, 2 seconds, and then exhale to the count of 4. I did it for a few seconds, and then I chanted Hare Krishna, and I could see I had entered my home state. And believe me, the kind of peace I experienced in that extremely volatile situation, I cannot describe. I had become one with the universe. I was like, death's coming, I'm ready. I was actually like that. And I saw that serenity transmit to my mom as well. And she was looking at me smiling as if we were ready for what's going to come now. Generally, this is a situation where fear becomes very intense. But somehow I had made peace with what's going to happen. And I just held her hand, maybe, I don't know how long it was. Maybe it was 20 minutes, half an hour, I don't remember. And then everything abated. And I was a transformed man. I said, I have to go out and share this with the world. Because we all are put in situations like that, when suddenly cyclones come. Like, to be very honest, this time I was in Madrid last month, and I lost my bag with passport. I can't tell you what happened in those 5 minutes. Unfortunately, one girl who had come for a retreat, Shamli, she was in the same bus that dropped us in that terminal. It was a pure coincidence. Actually a miracle what happened, how I got my thing back. But I remember those 10 minutes of anxiety. I was peaceful. I was struggling. I was in the struggle zone. But at the same time, because of my practice of being in the home state as a conscious practice, I was able to navigate through. My friend was with me, was surprised. When we realized we had lost it, I said, wait, nothing will happen in the next 30 seconds. Just pause. I had that clarity. I didn't panic. Before I panicked, I could connect to myself. And I said, now we need to panic. There's a difference between being angry. There is a difference between expressing anger and explaining your anger. As a young boy, I was very scared of my mom because when she was very emotional. She would get angry, she would just beat me, or she would shout. So she was predictable. My father was a mysterious man. When he was angry, he would come and tell me, son, I'm very angry with you right now. And the way he said it, I would get really scared of him. So, because you give out a message that you are in control of your emotions. Means you have more awareness. So if we spend every day some time in these activities of home state, we are at home, then when the outside world provokes us, we'll be able to take it. And this is what happened with me in Madrid this year. This is what happened with me when I was with my mom 2 years ago. When I realized the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war, right? So trust me, you're all young boys and girls. I see you have a whole life ahead of you. I'm 50, and I can assure you that if you sweat now in peace, in the sense you give yourself 1 hour, 2 hours every day, and see what happens to you when you are my age, you'll be glad that you spent every day some time in your home state. You need to spend some time to discover your home state also. You could try with journaling. I do journaling every day for minimum 1 hour. And we can discuss journaling also sometime, maybe, how it helps and the psychological benefits of journaling. But all that is another subject matter. The whole idea is, it's not about journaling, it's not about chanting, it's about being in your home state. And that's why I end with this. Meditation for us in the monastery is not about the mind. It's going beyond. It's to give a simple example, to end with a short story from one of our Indian Vedic traditional scriptures, wisdom books. It is a beautiful story of a sage living in a monastery, and a young seeker comes to him and says, I have a lot of anxieties, I need help. So the sage tells him, get me a handful of salt. For this apprentice gets a handful of salt, and the sage takes a cup of water and tells him to put that salt in that cup. And then the sage gives him that cup of water to drink. And that young man drinks the water, and guess what happens? He pukes. He just can't take it. And then he wonders, why did the sage do this to me? And the sage says, okay, get me another handful of salt. Again he gets. And the sage tells him, come with me. And he follows. And they come in front of a beautiful lake. And the sage says, put this salt in the lake. He puts it in the lake. And now the sage says, okay, now drink water from the lake. And he drinks. And guess what happens? It's sweet water. But the sage tells him that we all have been given the same handful of salt like anxiety. We all have the same. Of course, the nature may be different externally, but we all have got our share of anxieties. A handful of salt like anxieties. And the sage tells him, now you have a choice, my dear young man, to make your mind like a cup of water or a lake. If you are stuck, if you don't allow your consciousness to evolve and expand, you will be like a cup of water, and this anxiety will overwhelm you. But if you expand your heart and consciousness and make it like a beautiful lake, then these anxieties won't affect you. So this is my humble proposition, and this is from what I have practiced in my monastery, and I present it to you, and you can try this. Remember, we are in the inside world. We could be living in one of the three houses. What is the first house? House of pleasure, also known as sense gratification. The second house is problem solving or struggle, and the third is surrender, shelter, or peace. In our ancient traditional wisdom books, Bhagavad Gita, this is explained with an analogy of a chariot. The pleasure house is compared to a man in a chariot who has lost control of the horses. The 5 horses are driving everywhere, and he's like helpless. The second house, the problem-solving house, is compared to the man in the chariot. You seen Ben-Hur, an old 1959 Hollywood classic. As a young boy, my father would take me to the theater to see this. I think the first movie that won some 12, 13 Oscar awards in 1959. It was considered as a revolutionary movie. And the main scene in this movie, the climax of the movie is this chariot race. And during those days, this was considered as something unprecedented. The description for 20 minutes, it's very dramatic. So whenever I think of the 3 houses and the struggle, I think of this chariot race, where the horses are running wild, and the hero is trying to control the horses. So that's like the second house, the struggle house, where you are in charge of the chariot. So before coming to spirituality, I was like a man whose chariot horses were going wild. And then I come to spiritual life, I want to struggle, I want to control my mind, and But after 25 years of being in the monastery, let me assure you, and I'm sure you will also admit as you get older, even if you don't join the monastery, that life can get overwhelming. And you can feel, even though you're controlling the reins of the horses in your chariot, you can feel life is too intense. And you know what I do many times? I let the reins of the horses. I say, oh universe, please take charge of this chariot. I live it. That's what I mean by home state. Sometime, don't struggle. Because we are in this monastic clothes, you may think we are very peaceful, but we also struggle. And we need to remind ourselves, no, don't struggle for some time. Give it up. I'll end with this one last example, and then maybe we can have some discussion. We were in the monastery 6 years ago, and I was meditating like this. Not peacefully. I was like struggling. I was trying to control my mind was wandering, I was chanting, I was shaking my head, and I was like, it was more of a theatrical performance than meditation. I was going all over. So one of the congregation members was sitting and watching me. He comes on a Sunday, and that was Sunday morning. And after the meditation session, when we were taking breakfast, he came up to me and said, what were you doing those 2 hours? I said, I was struggling to control the mind. And he asked me, is it a struggle? I said, yes, I want to control my mind. And I want to be strong. And he said, I struggle 6 days a week. I'm working in the office. I have to manage my house. I have to manage my children. It's so much struggle. But what gives me strength is the thought that on a Sunday morning, I'm going to go to the temple and be with all the monks and feel peaceful. But I see you're also struggling. So what's the difference between you and me? And when he said that, it was as if somebody had slapped me. And that's how I changed my approach to meditation. So therefore, we need to be in some time every day in our heart space, home state, or peace space. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.